This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread. And today, we're going to begin a deep dive into the subject of best-in-class finance for maximum value growth. Now, for those of you who've been tracking us for some dozens of episodes now, some 30, 40, 50 episodes, we've been dealing with the subject of growing the value of your company. When I say value, I'm talking about the sales price, our walkaway money, like take this job and shove it type of money, right? Get the money, throw it in the bank. That's what we're working on. And we've reached the point to now we're going to start talking about finance. So I've titled today's episode, An Introduction to Best-in-Class Finance Departments for Maximum Business Value. Now, when I say finance departments, many times people may think, well, Justin, I'm just a solopreneur. I don't have a department. Or, Justin, our business only has 10 employees. We really don't have a finance department. That's okay. We're going to work through all those. But I want you to think about finance as a department. Think about finance as a distinct area of your business. Many of us, when we started business, we maybe didn't understand the world of money very well. Let's face it, we don't get formal finance education in college, not unless you're in the finance classes. I was talking to a high school graduate down in South Georgia over Christmas, and they were talking about that they didn't even know how to write a check. Now, granted, checks seem kind of archaic now, but yeah, I don't even understand how to keep ledger. I just kind of look at my bank account and know here's how much money I had. I said, well, do you know how to put additions and subtractions? Well, I don't really know. I've never done that. So let's just face it. Many of us are not financial wizards. And when we start our business, we want to go out and just do what we're good at. And unless you're in the finance world like me, chances are money is not what we're good at. I'm not throwing stones through glass houses. I know many successful business owners that through their own, as one person said to me over Christmas, through my own ignorance, I've reached success. I heard that exact statement, and it kind of made me laugh. You know, I have worked with dozens, I could almost now say hundreds of business owners throughout my career. And the one thing I've learned about it is those business owners who have very, very good finance acumen or financial books have the least amount of stress, typically. Whereas those who are lacking in the area of finance are often chasing their tail and are highly stressed. I've worked with people who don't keep any records at all, like none, like just put it on a credit card and come tax time, they give it to their poor CPA or tax advisor and say, hey, record this for me and tell me the damage, and only to be frustrated or mad that they really don't know what their tax bill is going to be. To the opposite side of that extreme where the clients could actually go to a trade show and teach other competitors how to run a finance department. They truly had best-in-class or truly have best-in-class finance departments. I have individuals who want to track their entire business on an Excel sheet. And I have individuals who hire out big firms, nationally based accounting firms, to do all their finance. So wherever you are on the plane there, wherever you are in this area, whether it be from no financial acumen all the way to you can go and teach the financial departments, I would dare say that all of us have the ability to improve in this area of finance. There was a statement I read not too long ago, and it was actually in my CVGA class, Certified Value Growth Advisor class, and the statement said, without comprehensive finance department and strategy, a company is at serious risk of not being able to finance future growth on sustainable terms, thereby diluting the value. Let's tear that statement apart. Without a comprehensive finance department, we're going to spend some time talking about what a finance department is, who's involved in that. Then it says finance department and strategy. Who's involved in making strategic moves as it relates to money? The company is at serious risk is the second phrase of that. Remember, if you're trying to drive the value of your company up, you have to reduce the risk in your company. No one is going to pay you top dollar for uncertainty. So if a company is at serious risk, then we're going to decrease the value. So by having a comprehensive finance department and strategy, we're going to thus reduce the risk, and we're going to be able to finance future growth. Remember, we want to have a growth trajectory. We want to be like an airplane taking off a runway and just climbing up to altitude, to cruising altitude. We want to see that trajectory moving on sustainable terms. We don't want the airplane to run out of gas before it gets to the next destination. That's a bad day. we call it in South Georgia. That's a bad day. Airplane runs out of gas, bad day. We don't want that to take place in our businesses. We don't want to have a rocket effect where it just shoots up, then runs out of fuel, and then crashes into the ocean. We don't want to see that. We want to see the airplane effect where the business takes off, it reaches altitude, and it sustains itself. And once we hit sustainable terms, now we're trying to increase the value.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
So you may be saying, Justin, I get all that, but how in the world do I even start thinking? So I want to ask you a few questions here. Let your brain kind of get into this area that we're going to spend a couple of episodes on, maybe even a dozen episodes on. I want to ask you some basic questions. You may say, yeah, I can handle that. Yeah, I can't. But these are some basic questions that help your brain start thinking. So question number one, what information would you, the business owner, or would your management like to see that they're currently not getting today? So I'm on a board. I'm on several boards, actually. I like sitting on boards. I work on the board of advisor for many companies. They pay me to be an advisor to them. And in that, one of the things I often ask for, especially in November and early December, is what are the revenues that you've received year to date? What are the expenses? What do you expect to receive before year end? And what can we do to change the tax outcome? What tax planning techniques? And I work very closely with the client's tax advisors. But I start asking questions in that avenue and get the tax advisor's brain thinking about how to minimize taxes in the next year. In order to do that, I have to see the income and expenses for the year. I had a client who I begged for years now to hire a bookkeeper, and they said, Justin, what's my tax bill going to be this next year? I saw a video of you talking about that on your YouTube channel. By the way, check it out, Financially Simple on YouTube. I saw a video of you talking about that, and what do I need to do to figure out what my tax bill is going to be and how can we reduce it? And I said, well, I need to see your income and your expenses and your projected income for the next year or for the next month. Yeah, I don't have that. What else can we do? That's a piece of information that I'd like to see. And that would be a capability that, in this case, him, she, he, husband and wife team are not really doing what they need to do in their finance department. So ask yourself, what is it you like to see that you currently don't have today? Let me ask you this. Do you have a board of advisors or board of directors? I mentioned that I'm going to sit on an advisory board. People actually hire me to sit on their advisory board in their business and just ask questions and provide them a little bit of insight. I like doing that. I have an advisory board myself. Now, you would laugh about who I have on my advisory board. I have my kids, my wife, my business partners. I'm inviting somebody else onto this who's not family or closely related this year, and I pay them. You pay them? Yeah, I pay my advisory board because it helps to have somebody from the outside look in and think with you. Let me ask you this. Do you track key business metrics on a regular basis? Like one of my clients not too long ago, he said, Justin, I track everything on the back of a napkin. And he did, but he was missing some things and he wasn't able to forecast. Let me ask you this. Do you currently prepare a budget? Oh, yeah, I said the B word. Do you currently prepare a budget for your business? We're going to talk about zero-based budgeting versus year-over-year budgeting. Talk about the advantages and disadvantages of it. Do you prepare a forecast, a pro forma, showing where your business should be? And if you do prepare a budget and a forecast, then how are you using it in planning to specifically drive accountability and measurement tools that you can track your business year over year over year? And at that point, only a slim minority actually followed me through those two questions. Let's be honest. Many business owners, myself included, are often so busy that we don't have time to work on our business. That's what I'm trying to get you to think about here. The money side of your business, whether it just be a simple budget or a forecast, and then using it in planning to create accountability and measurements for your business to see how your business is performing, almost like a health test. Do you have a process that documents the development or the strategies for your financial functions? Do you know what you need to do when you need to do it throughout the year? I talked about November and December. That's the easy one. Are you meeting with your advisory team to see what your tax bill is going to be and if you should make any year-end adjustments? If not, why? I didn't know any better. Well, in the next couple of episodes, you're going to get a whole lot of information. Let me ask you this one. Are you meeting all of your regulatory and compliance requirements? There's a client of mine, the office manager just wasn't cut out for the particular position. And the office manager ended up causing the individual not to be in compliance with state authorities because it just didn't have a process in place. It was part of the financial process and it just wasn't there. Let me ask you, do you have any way to manage debt? Debt gets all of us if we're not careful. How are you managing your cash flow? So those are some basic questions, just some very simple questions that we're going to look at for the reason of driving value. So here are some ways a best-in-class finance accounting department can help. Number one, it's going to provide you with a financial analysis to improve performance in your company and then to deliver consistent and predictable results. Consistent and predictable. Let's go back to my crazy airplane analogy. We get an airplane in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I want to fly to Portland, Oregon. And I get on the airplane. I know that the airplane that I'm going to be flying on is consistent and predictable. Would you get onto an airplane that was not consistent and predictable? No. Maybe you would. I know some people that would just for the thrill of it, but no, you wouldn't do that. Why in the world would someone pay top dollar for your company if it's not consistent or predictable? Another thing that a finance department can do is it can help you with strategic planning to drive your long-term goals to fruition. We talked about this in past episodes, but we're going to circle back around and deal specifically with strategic planning as it relates to finance. You know what it does? It provides transparency. A good finance department provides transparency to leadership and to outside investors, to bankers, to whomever you need it to. Maybe it's the purchaser of your business. It's going to add transparency. Think about that individual who kept all of his whole financial records on an Excel sheet. That is not transparency. It's the opposite, actually. The buyer is going to go in and try to figure out, well, where do these numbers come from? And the seller's going to say, well, I entered those in every time I get my statement. Now we're relying on the seller to make sure the numbers are accurate. I'm sorry. It's just not going to cut it. You're not going to get the most value for your business. Whenever you have the best-in-class accounting department, you're going to have internal controls that are going to reduce risk. You're going to be in compliance with regulatory authorities, and you're going to be able to manage cash flow to fund growth. So there's some ideas on what's coming up in this next micro series on a best-in-class finance department. Now, we're recording this in January. It's 2019. Happy New Year to you. And as I'm recording this, they're going to be released very quickly. So as you're listening to this, if you say, Justin, I'd like to hear this about money, go ahead and shoot me an email to justin@financiallysimple.com, or you can reach out to me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Someone reached out on our YouTube channel I mentioned earlier, and they said, hey, Justin, could you answer this question for me? And we are actually have that coming up in a podcast here very soon. Like I say every week, if you like the podcast, please share it with a friend. If you don't, hey, share it anyways. Do me a favor and leave us a review on Amazon. Apple. I'm thinking Amazon because Amazon just seemed to take all of my Christmas money this year. No wonder the stock is doing as well as it does. Now, I'm not an Apple person per se, so Apple didn't get much of my money. But if you would jump on Apple, if you're an Apple buyer, and leave me a nice review. Like I say every week, guys, life is hard. Life is good, and life can be frustrating and complicated. Money doesn't have to be, especially money in business. It's super easy. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, Happy New Year, everyone.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.